Breakthroughs, returns, historic feats. How PH Sports unfolded in 2025. Manila. The past year saw new sports stars emerge in the Philippines, with one particular athlete rising higher than the rest. Filipina tennis player Alex Ila reached new heights in 2025, making history with virtually every match in the WTA Tour while winning hearts at home with her fighting spirit and humility. There were also returns. Manny Pacquiao stepped back into the ring this year, submitting an impressive performance considering his long layoff from boxing. Capping the year was a mixed bag of results in the 33rd Southeast Asian Games in Thailand, where Filipino athletes delivered plenty of golden moments, but also missed the targets set by the nation's sports officials. 2025 will be remembered as the year that Alex Ila went from an up-and-comer to a full-fledged star. She started the year with a dream run in the Miami Open, where she defeated a bevy of Grand Slam champions, Yelena Ostapenko, Madison Keys, and Iga Swiatek, en route to a semifinal appearance. There, she lost to Jessica Pegula, but the sensational campaign was enough for her to make it to the WTA's top 100. What followed was a busy year full of historic results. Ila made her debut in the French Open and Wimbledon, each time losing in the first round. She reached the finals of the Eastbourne Open, a WTA 250 tournament, where she lost to Maya Joint in a heartbreaker. She went on to make her debut in the U.S. Open, where she defeated Clara Tauson in the first round, making her the first Filipino to win a Grand Slam match. While Ila endured some struggles in the second half of the season, she ended her campaign on a high note by delivering a gold medal in women's singles in the 2025 Southeast Asian Games, snapping a 26-year drought for the Philippines in the event. For years after he announced his retirement, Filipino boxing icon Manny Pacquiao returned to the sport that made him a global superstar. Pacquiao stepped back into the ring in July against Mario Barrios, where the 46-year-old gave a good account of himself and showed that he still has what it takes to compete at a high level. Despite training for only 2 months after his failed attempt to win a Senate seat, Pacquiao still took Barrios to the distance and eventually settled for a majority draw. Nonetheless, there were some factions who believed that the Pac-Man deserved a victory over his much younger opponent, who retained the WBC welterweight belt with the result. Pacquiao has since hinted that he will fight again in 2026, even reuniting with his old promoter, Top Rank, for the next steps in his career. Ila, of course, topped the list with her terrific run. She dominated a hometown bet in Maninkaya Sawanki, 6-1, 6-2, in the final for a gold medal that was widely celebrated throughout the nation. The Philippine women's national football team also continues to make history. In Thailand, they copped a first-ever gold medal in football for the Philippines, in the process beating the home nation in the semis and 4-time defending champion Vietnam in the finals. Along the way, they displayed the grit and fighting spirit that have come to define the Filipinas. Their match against Thailand and Vietnam both went into penalties, but each time they held their nerve to seal the victory. The women's beach volleyball team also secured a first-ever gold medal by dethroning Thailand, the reigning 8-time champions of the event. It was an emotional triumph for the veteran pair of Cici Rondina and Bernadotte Pons, who also got a superb effort from the tandem of Dia Rodriguez and Sonny Villalpando on their way to the top of the podium. In 2025, Philippine sports did not move in a straight line. It surged, stumbled, recovered, and soared again, much like the stories of the athletes who carried the flag across courts, tracks, rings, and fields. This was a year defined not by a single victory or a lone superstar, but by a collective rhythm of breakthroughs, long-awaited returns, and historic feats that reshaped how Filipinos saw themselves in the arena of competition. It was a year when sports stopped being just a spectacle and became a mirror of national character. A year that began with belief. The year opened with cautious optimism. After seasons disrupted by injuries, transitions, and rebuilding phases, Filipino fans entered 2025 asking a familiar question: is this finally our year again? Across different sports, the answer slowly revealed itself, not in loud declarations, but in steady performances. Athletes who once hovered on the edge of international relevance began stepping confidently into the spotlight. Younger players showed composure beyond their years, while veterans reminded everyone why experience still mattered. What made 2025 special was that success did not come from one direction alone. Instead, it arrived in waves. Breakthroughs, the rise of the new guard. Perhaps the strongest theme of the year was breakthrough. In individual sports, young Filipino athletes made noise on global stages, where the Philippines had often been considered an underdog. They were no longer content with participation, they demanded contention. Finals appearances, podium finishes, and record-breaking performances became more frequent, signaling a shift from promise to presence. These breakthroughs were not accidents. They were the product of years of quiet preparation, early morning trainings, overseas exposure, improved coaching, and stronger sports science support. For the first time in a while, Filipino athletes were not just reacting to elite competition, they were setting the pace. In team sports, fresh lineups and rebuilt systems finally clicked. New faces emerged as leaders, not because they were the loudest, but because they delivered in crucial moments. Close games that once slipped away now tilted in favor of Philippine teams, suggesting a growing maturity in decision-making and mental toughness. Breakthroughs in 2025 were not flashy miracles. They were earned. Returns, the power of comebacks. If breakthroughs were about the future, returns were about unfinished business. Several Filipino athletes and teams spent 2025 reclaiming what injuries, setbacks, or time had taken from them. These comebacks resonated deeply with fans, not just because of the wins, but because of the stories behind them. Athletes returned from long rehabilitation periods with renewed purpose. Some adjusted their playing styles, relying less on raw athleticism and more on intelligence and timing. Others came back stronger, proving that setbacks were chapters, not endings. On the team level, squads that once dominated but had fallen into rebuilding phases rediscovered their identity. Familiar colors and crests once again commanded respect, not through nostalgia, but through disciplined execution and renewed hunger. These returns carried an important message. Greatness does not always mean moving forward without falling. It means standing up every time you do. Historic feats, redefining what's possible.